All right, so today is just a course retrospective. It's not any material or anything new or anything like that. I just wanted to take an opportunity to reflect on where we've been and give you some hints on where you're going next. That's what a retrospective is. Basically, you are asking yourself what went well, what didn't go so well, what can be improved for the future, right? And I do this every week, right? The weekly retrospective. I do this on every assignment, what went well, what the common errors on that assignment, etc. But the course evaluations are your opportunity to give a retrospective. So I want to know what went well in this course, what didn't go so well, any suggestions on improvements or anything like that. And for this section, we're at about 17 out of 28, so we're almost there, 60%. If we get that 75%, then we'll go ahead and tack on 20 points bonus for everybody on that starter points. So if you haven't done it already, do it by this Friday. If you know your colleagues have not done it, then make sure to put positive peer pressure on them to do so. But otherwise, again, I take these seriously, so don't just fill them out to get to that 75%. Be thoughtful about it, provide constructive criticism, and also, we do make changes based on these course evaluations. But if we introduce something new, that necessarily means something old gets pushed out. So advocate for stuff, right? If the videos were the best thing or that helped you, then make sure to mention that, because we'll keep those in there, right? So it's not just telling us what could be improved or what we could do differently. It's no, keep that thing because that really helped me in this process. Where have you been throughout this semester, right? What are the lessons you've learned? What are the skills that you've acquired? What are the achievements you've unlocked? Hopefully you have a lot better soft skills now. Those soft skills like teamwork, right? You've got conflict resolution, not really an issue in the H sections, but hopefully you have had coordination issues, right? Like I work in the morning or I work at night. You need to coordinate with each other. How do you communicate with each other? How do you get together? Do we have to be face to face all the time, or no? Email works best for us, or Discord, or whatever it is, right? All those communication skills. Hopefully, you have a little bit better planning, organization, and time management. Again, this is not that major for an H section because, again, I was asked the difference between an honor student and a regular student, and it's never intelligence. Everybody is smart, right? It's tenacity. It is the ability to self-organize and to care about your own work to the point where you take responsibility for your own work. And so planning, organization, and time management already comes built in to an H section, and I'm thankful for it, right? But also, hopefully, you've expanded your toolbox, right? In this case, you've got a second, third, or even fourth programming language. If you're coming from the H section already, then that means you've got C and Java already. You have Python now. And, of course, you have SQL. I really like that we have SQL in the first year here. And it's not something I would ever get rid of because so many curricula out there don't even introduce, some of them don't even introduce relational database management systems as part of their core computing. Instead, it's just an optional technical elective or something, even though it is fundamental to all software development, right? So I'm glad that we do it in the first year, at least introduce it in the first year. Also, object-oriented programming, and hopefully Git. Hopefully you're using Git on a daily basis at this point, even for just regular stuff, like just my personal stuff. I put it on Git, right? If it's private or if it's public, because one, it's protection against catastrophic loss, right? If your hard drive gets fried or something like that, I still have a copy over there, right? The one example that I usually give is I like baseball, and I like scoring baseball, but I've never found a scorecard that I like, so I made my own. And where do you think it exists? On Git, right? You could actually find it if you want to. But I put my scorecards up on Git because it is so useful. You can find it anywhere, right? You have a backup. Making changes is super easy. You just commit the changes and you push it out, and now everybody gets the benefit of those changes, right? That's why everything is up on Git. I hate Canvas because to change something on Canvas requires, click, 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 upload, download, delete, et cetera, et cetera. With Git, all I have to do is type, done, and that's it. So it is super useful in your daily lives, right? Every discipline, by the way, has some form of Git. Right? Only in the last 10 years has Microsoft been brought up to speed, and you can have shared documents, Google Docs, and stuff like that. But also other like I work with folks over in the Carson Center, and they use basically content management systems like this, versioning systems like this for, say, 3D modeling. They'll check it in so that other people can check it out and make changes and check those changes in. They don't call it Git, they don't use Git, but it's the same basic concept, except that we've been doing it for, well, more than 20 years. Git itself is about 20 years old, but the concept of Git goes back to SVN and CVS, or CVS, content versioning systems. So it predates that by another 20 years or so. Hopefully you have some good experience and perspective building a larger project. As you go through the rest of your matriculation, as you go through industry, you'll find that the scale of this project this semester was actually not large. It was actually quite small. The projects that you'll be working on, year-long projects in your capstone, are going to be way larger. The projects that you work on in industry are going to be even larger than that, right? But at least you have some experience building a larger project rather than just week-to-week assignments or something like that. You also have exposure to technical writing. Right? I love it that we bring in the Writing Center folks each year. I'm grateful and thank you to them for continuing to work with me and coming in and helping me with that, because the employer survey that we give at the beginning of that to motivate that. So many folks graduate from, they can code anything, but they can't write a simple email, or they can't write a simple technical document or explain themselves. Why are you doing that? I don't know. It's just the way I've always done it, right? Yeah. And so hopefully we've given you some good experience with technical writing that you can take forward, right? Hopefully you have a better appreciation of technical debt, or eating your own dog food is what we called it in industry, where if you didn't do it right the first time, you're going to have to find time to do it over, right? Or if you had a bad design, then you're going to spend time fighting your design. We still had designs in the main section where their sale class did not have a list of items on that sale. It's impossible to do assignment 7 if you had that bad design. So they were either forced to go back and fix that design and spend a whole hell of a lot more time than other people did on assignment 7, or they couldn't do assignment 7 at all, right? So understanding technical debt, that if you do it wrong the first time, you're taking out a loan on your time, on your future time, because you're either going to be spending time fighting that design, or you're spending time going back and fixing that design. In industry, we had a catch-all term for it called eating your own dog food. That was more like, if you had a bad design, you had to eat your own dog. It was dog food design, right? It tasted terrible. It was bad design. You're forced to eat it. You're forced to live with it, right? It also extends to policies. Like if a manager wanted you to be there every day at 8 a.m. for a stand-up, okay, well, where are you at 8 a.m., right? And if they aren't there, then no, you need to eat your own dog food, because if you want us to do something, we expect you to do it as well, right? So bad practices hopefully become apparent why they're bad practices. The design should be coming first, not as an afterthought, because if you spend just a little bit of time whiteboarding something, or talking to a partner about it, or just thinking about it in your own head for a while, right? It becomes rather clear, no, that's not going to work. I'm not going to waste my time coding that up, because I can foresee a problem down the line with that design. I'm going to redesign it and do it like this, right? Hopefully it becomes apparent why good test cases and an informal test suite is a good idea. Again, in the main section, we still had folks that my stuff doesn't work. And well, is it because you're not saving to the database correctly, or is it because you're not loading from the database correctly? Like, I don't know, right? Well, that's because you never even called your functions once, right? At least have one ad hoc test where you're going to call that add person method, right? Instead, people were just over reliant on the web grader, and fix a little thing, tweak it a little bit, and see if the web grader changes, right? There's a quote: the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results, right? You're just sitting there spinning your wheels over and over again if you're not writing your own test cases. And again, it doesn't happen here, but poor variable names are still a thing, right? RS, PS, RS1, RS2, RS3. Which one was for which? I don't know. Which one should be closed first? I don't know, right? Having poor variable names is still a thing. If you've gotten into the bad habit of doing that, get yourself out of that bad habit as quickly as you can, because getting out of bad habits is way harder than staying in good habits, right? And establishing good habits, I should say. Hopefully you also have an idea of some over-engineering, right? The YAGNI, right? Always think when, I'm about to do something, am I really going to need it? Yes, I'm going to need it because of this thing over here, right? Or, no, I mean, it's nice to have, but am I really going to need it? Right? YAGNI, I'm not going to do it right now. Maybe I'll do it later, right? Bad database design, right? If you had bad database design or an over-design or over-engineered database, then that means that you were writing 2, 3, 4 times as many queries as you had to if you just followed a single table inheritance strategy or something. Hopefully you have, again, better appreciation for the scope of a larger project, working and coordinating in teams. You're better coders overall, you're better designers. There's a great quote by one of the course evaluations from many years ago about how I came into this course not really knowing what I was doing, but I left a coding machine, right? And so that's how you should feel about yourself, right? Don't compare yourself, never compare yourself to others, right? Only ever compare yourself to yourself, right? Because when you compare yourself to others, you're only looking at their highlight reel rather than their bloopers, right? You never see the bloopers, right? Never see the bad things, right? Again, not that big of a deal in the honors section, but the number one problem people have with this course is that they never really get started. I keep week-to-week statistics, and I don't have them prepared yet. I put them in my retrospective. But usually it works like everybody's getting an A for the first 3 weeks. What happens in the fourth week? Drops down, right, to the numbers that I'll show you. Why? Because that was the first real assignment, right? They never really got started. Hopefully, maybe the procrastination continued, right, throughout the semester. One thing that we've tried to do to alleviate that, and like 3 years ago, I introduced the usage of Gantt charts. Did anybody find that useful? 1, 2, okay. All right, even if just one person found it useful, then good, right? At least it shows you what, Gantt charts are actually old. I think that they're 120, 150 years old or something like that. They are used in industry still to this day. Why? Because they work, right? If you have a deadline, you plan backwards from that deadline using a Gantt chart. Another thing that we used that we didn't really cover, but you'll cover more in depth and formally when you're looking at software engineering stuff, is agile development. This breaks the development process up into what are called sprints. They're usually 4 weeks, but because this is a course, we made ours into 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 week or something, depending on the assignment. But in a real development environment, what you do at the beginning of your sprint is as a team. It's a self-management thing. You really aren't supposed to have managers telling you what to do. Instead, you have stakeholders that say, this is our priority. And then your team says, okay, to meet that priority, at the beginning of this 4 weeks, we're going to commit to this work right here, right? And you have this thing called a burn down chart where you start at the sprint and ideally you're working on a nice linear burn down, right? Because that means that you're working at a nice even pace. You don't have these spikes in productivity, these troughs when you're not doing anything, right? Of course, it's really bad if you start here and then you end here because that means you didn't do anything. It's really bad if you start here and then you end immediately, right? Because that means that you didn't plan well. It's really bad if you start here and then it's flat for the entire month and then you cram everything in the last day, right? That never works, right? Because you're never at your best with procrastination. So we try to break that up by giving you the sprints. We don't let you, as a team decide what you're going to be doing for that 4 weeks. Instead, we give you 2 weeks, this is what you're doing, right? And hopefully you have a nice burn down chart where you have a planning stage, you have a development stage, you have a testing phase. And hopefully the design came first at the beginning of that process. Unfortunately, again, procrastination is still a nasty beast. And many people do, work at the very last minute. The best quality work is never done like that, right? And by the way, just to tell you, procrastination never ends, right? I have colleagues who are not available during, what do I say, the grant writing sessions, right? They're all NSF, DoD. They all have these major grant due dates. Guess what faculty are doing even a week right up to there? They're still writing their grants, right? They're doing it at the last possible second. Paper due dates are the same for a conference, right? I was so proud of myself. The last conference I got a paper in, my paper was submission number 1. It's not in terms of the best. It's just it was the first one that got submitted because I submitted months ahead of time when it actually opened. But procrastination is something that will continue throughout your lives. It's something that you're going to have to deal with because, again, you have those soft skills, right? Conflict resolution. That means knowing how you work, knowing how others work, and knowing how to deal with those discrepancies, right? Not everybody works, 6 weeks out or something like that, right? That you do eventually have to accommodate that, right? And you pick up little skills and little things as you go along of how to deal with that. Like if somebody only works the last possible minute, you send them reminders, right? We only have a week to do this, and I need that, and so or. I personally set what are called drop dead dates. That's also something in agile development that says I can do that work if this dependency is done by this date. If it's not done by that date, I'm not doing it, right? And being able to have that kind of conflict resolution, set boundaries on other people where you don't control what they do, those are soft skills too that you need to learn, right? And putting the foot down and saying, no, I'm not going to be able to do that. But if you do this, this, and this, then I can commit to this other thing over here, right? It's also I've never taken an acting class or anything like that, but I work with enough Carson people, like I said, to know what improv is all about. And you never say no, right? It's always yes and, right? You always formulate things in a positive and then redirect them to how you want it to be done, right? So, maybe that's possible, but if we do it this way, then I can do that, right? Always redirect things as a positive in your favor, right? And learning those kind of communication skills is absolutely invaluable, right? All right, so here's the summary of the skills objectives that you had at the beginning of the semester that I mentioned that now we can reflect on. You should be able to more easily pick up and learn a new programming language, right? If you're going to get into Python more, or if you're getting into a framework that uses Python, Django, or if you're getting into an MVC architecture, React, or something like that, JavaScript would be the next language that I would suggest that you take up because it is extremely pervasive. C# would be the other one that I would suggest that you pick up because especially locally, everybody's got, there's a whole bunch of .NET houses, Microsoft houses around here. When we say house, that's like a development company that they've made the choice that we're doing all of our development in Microsoft stacks, .NET, C#, SQL Server, etc. Right? Why? Because they paid Microsoft and now they've got vendor lock, right? But anyway, be able to recognize and use and design and appreciate programs with an object-oriented flavor, right? You should be able to design a database-backed application from scratch given a general problem statement. Right? So we gave you a general problem statement, and we walked you through the process of designing a database, a middle tier for it, and not a user-facing tier, but you did produce a couple of reports. You should be able to handle and implement basic data structures and recognize when using that data structure will get things done in 3 seconds versus using that data structure over there is going to take me 20 years. Right? Being able to understand, oh no, if I use a heap, then the code is as simple as put stuff in, take stuff out. It's 4 lines of code and we're done, right? Be able to identify and analyze basic algorithms, right? Seeing a loop within a loop within a loop within a loop, huge no-no, right? Why? Because that's probably going to be order end of the 4th or something, right? How can we unravel that? How can we improve that? How can we use a data structure to do most of the work for us and the heavy lifting, right? Again, this all goes back to the quote at the beginning of the semester. Smart data structures and dumb code are a lot better than the other way around. Eric S. Raymond by The Cathedral and the Bazaar. This is a book, kind of a philosophical approach to software development. Like, who has the answers? Is it the learned few in the ivory towers in the cathedrals that tell everybody else how things should be done? Or is it from the bazaar, getting many eyes on a project, right? And he's a free and open source software advocate, so his answer is the bazaar, right? That it comes from everywhere, right? And reaching a consensus among many people is much better than just a few people saying how things should be done, right? By the end of this course, you should be able to approach a reasonably complex problem and ask design questions first. What entities or objects, what building blocks should I be creating in order to start? I don't have a top-down solution and I break it up. Instead, I say, well, what building blocks should I create first in order to build this wall? How should these objects then interact with each other to solve this problem? And what data structures could I bring to bear that would be efficient to use and save me a lot of time and effort? Right? If you go back to assignment 1, for example, now knowing some of the data structures that we've covered, especially maps, right? Especially trees and tree-based data structures, would you be able to do that first assignment in half the time? I imagine so, right? So, big takeaway is you may have done some things wrong, right? And that's part of the process. We expect that. That's why we allow and build into the course a resubmission opportunity. But next time, you'll do them better because you've having learned from the process. The other key takeaway here is that if you're want to call yourself a computer scientist, a computer engineer, software engineer, data scientist, or there's something else that we're adding, robotics engineer is coming up next in the next couple of years, right? Then actually what you are is a lawyer, a philosopher, diplomat, manager, designer, creator, writer, thinker, and very last, are you a programmer, right? Especially as you go progress in your career. The amount of time that you'll actually spend coding will decrease and decrease and decrease. And the time that you spend doing these things will increase, increase, increase. You have to be a little bit of a lawyer because can we use that code base over there? Yes, it's released under a GPL license, so we can go ahead and use that. No, they released it under a Creative Commons license, not for commercial use. So we have to stay away from that, right? That code was generated by ChatGPT, and now the OpenAI is being sued by everybody because they're using their stuff as a basis for this large language model generation. Are we going to be in hot water now because of that, right? You have to be a little bit of a lawyer. In fact, you have to be a little bit of a lawyer. I just had to be a little bit of a lawyer. Was it last semester? I forget when it was. I got a cease and desist from some rando on the internet because one of the showcases of a previous class of mine was using this image, right? And it was, I was enough of a lawyer to know, nope, this cease and desist is BS, right? And I just referred it to the council, UNL council. They were copyleft trolls. Have you heard of that? So copyleft trolls are ones that will look out for copyrighted material that has been released for fair use, but that has not, by the letter of the law, given fair credit. Like we didn't explicitly state that it was from this website or that website, and that this person holds the copyright, because it was built by a student. They weren't a complete lawyer on that, but knowing a little bit of the law, I knew, nope, we're protected under the fair use guidelines, right? So screw you, go talk to lawyers, right? And our lawyers knew enough to say, no, we don't pay out on this, like go pound sand, right? Unfortunately, some of our sysadmins weren't as keen on that, and so immediately took it down and sent an apology email. The one thing you never do in American law is say you're sorry. Why? That can be construed as guilt, right? And all your lawyers have just said, nope, now we need to settle because you sent that out, right? Never, ever admit fault, even if it's just to say sorry. And by extension, never, ever say anything without a lawyer present, right? Especially if it's criminal stuff. The one thing you never do is talk to cops, right? Never say anything without a lawyer present. You just open yourself up to a whole bunch of stuff, right? In fact, there's an excellent video. I haven't posted in a while, but there's an excellent video of Shut the F Up Friday, right? And it's these two lawyers who remind you always, any interaction with law authorities or anybody who's claiming to be lawful people, even if it's a civil suit or something like that, never say anything. Lawyer up immediately, right? And they give several examples of, like no, they didn't say anything and we got them off completely fine, right? Another person said, oh yeah, I was in that store, but I wasn't doing anything. Nope, guilty, right? So always, you don't have to be a lawyer, but you have to be enough of a lawyer to know when to shut up, right? And not do anything, right? And not do anything bad, right? That will get you in trouble. You have to be a little bit of a philosopher, just like Eric S. Raymond is here, because you have to think about where good ideas come from, right? And what are good ideas and what makes a good idea, right? What makes a good design? Because you're going to have two perfectly good designs, sitting in your hands, and you're going to say, well, is this one better or is that one better? And you have to be a little bit of a philosopher about it because you have to weigh the advantages and the disadvantages. Right? You have to be a little bit of a diplomat because there's the soft skills again. Right? You have to know about yourself. You have to have a little bit of those self-reflection and emotional intelligence to know how you work, to understand how other people work, because not everybody works the way you work. Right? I like to work at night. No, not me. No, I'm in bed. But if you self-reflect and say, I work best on a deadline, or I work best 6 weeks out, or I work best at a nice steady pace, right? You have to be able to understand that and understand that others don't, not everybody works like that. Everybody has a different way of working and a different perspective, and you have to be able to have the empathy with that in order to work with that, right? You have to be a little bit of a manager because you are always managing yourself, if nothing else, right? Your time management and making sure to hold yourself accountable for things. The biggest thing I tell people when they team up with somebody is that you are taking on a risk. It's not half the work. It's actually more work because now you are responsible not only for yourself, but you're responsible for your partner. You're responsible for the rest of your team, right? You also have to be designers and creators and writers, of course, and of course thinkers, and the very last, programmers. Like I said, right? As you progress, it ends up being like this, right? Starting out, you write only 2 lines of code per hour, right? But then when you hit your stride, you're writing a lot of lines of code per hour, even though you're still frustrated with it, right? And then eventually you calm down and you realize, no, design comes first, right? I'm going to go ahead and put in 50 minutes of thinking and only have to write 2 lines of code. That's an exaggeration, but that's the idea, right? And eventually you get down to where you're not writing code at all. You're taking it away, right? Again, how do you know when something is done? Not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away, right? I can make those 10 lines of code more efficient with an off-the-shelf data structure, and it's only 2 lines of code. Put it into a heap, pull it out of the heap, and it's done. It's sorted, right? All those ideas. I can take that one function that you wrote to find that one sale. I can put it into a map and never have to worry about that again, right? Because I can look it up by the code or the ID or something, right? So as you progress, you'll get down to this where you're not writing code anymore, or you write code, but then no, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. You go, there will always be a temptation. Write code. 2 years later, you look back on it. If you're still dependent on it, nope, I need to rewrite this, right? And you end up doing it because you can do it a whole lot better the second time around. Right? Here are the stats. Right? We had 30 enrolled. Everybody is sitting at an A. This is about what we are historically, right? For the H section, I should say. Again, it's comparable, slightly better overall. I don't have the mean here, but the mean would be high, and then maybe the low 90s or something, right? Low to mid 90s. The course conclusion, all you have left is assignment 8 and your design document. And if you've been doing good on your iterations and reviewing our feedback and our retrospectives, then you're probably already done with the design document. You just have to clean it up a little bit. Obviously, there's no final exam. Both of these things are due on Friday by midnight. We will be grading them after that. So if you get it done early, great, you're done with the course. Otherwise, the last thing you should be doing is that course evaluation. Right? Make sure that you're getting that in before Friday. Where to go from here? I think everybody here is probably taking 235 already. It's the companion course for this course. If not, if you have not taken that, then you will be taking that. Otherwise, Computer Science 3 is offered in the fall. I think it's also, is it offered in the summer? I'm not sure. Is it? Okay. Did you know who's teaching it? Alterazi, okay. Then it is offered in the summer. I'd be careful though. Again, if you want a challenge, then do it, because it's 15 weeks of material compressed into 5 weeks. This is true for any summer course. And so that means you're going to be going 3 times as fast, right? That means if you map that back to a regular semester, taking 3 hours in a 5-week session means that you're taking 9 hours in a regular section, right? Not quite full time, but nearly there by itself, right? If you took 2 courses in a 5-week session, that would be 6 hours. That'd be 18 credit hours during a regular academic year. That's more than full time, right? So keep that in mind. But otherwise, professionally, internships. How many people have an internship this summer? 1, 2, 3. All right, good. Right. Otherwise, my advice would be to go back in time and attend the career fair, because everybody in here would be more than qualified for most internships after their first year. Certainly, after your second year, you should be going for those internships, and during the regular year, you should be going through those internships. If you're not on Handshake, UNL Handshake, make sure that you're getting on there. I don't know what it looks like as far, because I can't get in there as a non-student, but employers will post job listings there. Employers will see your profile. It's basically a LinkedIn for UNL. Is this new to everybody? You've never heard of this? Oh, no? They didn't cover this in like CS10? No? Okay. Wow. Okay. Just go into UNL Handshake, and that's the job listings there. Otherwise, make sure that you're also keeping in touch through Bits and Bytes. It's only, I think it's still weekly during the summer and a lot less content, but if there's any jobs or any job opportunities, they do list them in Bits and Bytes. They might also cross-post them to Discord. It's not as active as it should be, but it should be. But you can change that, right? Make it more active. Especially those of you that are in an internship, right? If they're still looking for people, make sure post on to Discord. On internships, there are companies that have not filled all of their positions, right? Because they had their prime candidates that they wanted, but they chose something else. So they might still be hiring. So look back at those old opportunities if you're looking, right? It's not too late. It's never too late, because even if you don't end up getting anything, going through the process is still valuable, right? Learn a new language, build a new project, do what you're going to do over the summer, but have fun too with it, right? If you wanted to, learn Unity and build a game or something like that, and join the UNL Game Development Club. If you wanted to learn to build the Linux kernel and install it from scratch, right, you could go to the OS2G. If you want to learn some augmented reality and virtual reality stuff, I've got another place that you can join, the NASA Suits competition team. Unfortunately, they weren't chosen this year. They were chosen last year and got to go down to Texas to the Johnson Space Center, right, and actually test their AR stuff out on their rock thing, their moon rock stuff. They have entire fields where they test, NASA tests stuff down at Johnson Space Center. They got to go down there for a week and test their stuff out, and I think that they did the best job by far. But in any case, they didn't get chosen this last year. But you can join them over the summer and work towards the proposal for next fall. I mention only those 3 things because I'm directly involved with them. There's lots more opportunities out there. Is Initialize still a thing? It is? Okay, good. That's another one. Can you tell us about it? No, you can't. Okay, you're not involved with it. Okay. Okay, so get involved with it. He's a grad student now, so I don't know if he's still involved with it. But it's also it's bringing your computing skills to bear for social good. For example, they have K through 12 outreach programs. They've got they work with nonprofits. They work with a couple of other organizations to put computing students together with others to do outreach efforts and nonprofit stuff. Right? So again, I'm not involved with this, so I can't tell you much beyond that, but I can tell you that it's a possibility. Thank you for saying that it is still active. Right? Otherwise, I want to thank everybody for joining in person still. Everybody that's online that chose to attend online instead. Everybody that just randomly wandered in. Wait, what did I say last? Okay, it has changed. I said in the last section that we were at 4,860 subscribers. We're now at 4,870. So maybe somebody subscribed. I thought we would reach 5,000 by this year, but we haven't. Oh well. Thank you to all the randos out there that attended as well. And thank you, of course, to all the learning assistants. If you see them, we will be holding regular office hours, regular help hours throughout this week, not next week, not finals week. They have finals too. But they'll be holding regular help hours and lab hours. So if you see them in your lab, make sure that you thank them for their help this semester. I certainly will be. Thank you for everybody who took this class, and have a good summer. So, yeah, and good luck with the rest of your finals if you've got any, and good luck with the rest of your classes if you've got any final projects or whatever.